fossil fuels have brought us the biggest environmental crisis in history. Maybe not just the environmental crisis, but one of the biggest crises in human history, and that is the climate crisis. We continue to be so dependent on many things, on fossil fuel for many things, and we have also seen some of the most incredibly intense destruction of nature in our lifetime. And then we have the COVID-19 pandemic on top of what we now consider as a climate emergency, an emergency that is causing so much harm to many people and many communities, so much harm to nature, with a threat fully known by many of us and requiring immediate action, but such action not yet being done to remove the danger. This is a reminder again for all of us, even with the slowdown brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, a slowdown in terms of the economy, in terms of people's lives, it continues. The climate crisis continues, and the warmest years on record have been in very recent years. And 2020 has tied 2016 as the hottest year on record. Now that leaves us with, I hope, with an important food for thought as we have this conversation on how we are being affected by climate change and what needs to be done to hold those responsible for this crisis accountable, because it is truly the one of the biggest injustices in our history. Why? Because those who are least responsible for this crisis are the most adversely affected. There's no bigger injustice with a simple story such as one where those who are suffering from the impacts of a problem had little to do with creating the problem. And at the roots of this crisis sit a deadly mix of factors that further aggravate the injustice. Just to fully illustrate a little bit more what this means in terms of the global context, you can see here a world map of emissions all over the world. And just pay attention to the darker colored countries here. You can easily see, without going into detail, that on a map of emissions that has resulted in global climate change, Latin America, Africa, South and Southeast Asia, many countries that have not contributed a lot to climate change are suffering from climate change. And those that you see here with the darker colored areas, they are industrialized countries. They are richer countries, as this other map shows. The wealth per adult in the same countries that has contributed so much to carbon emissions are pretty much the same. This is pretty much the same map as the emissions. So that's a clear correlation. That is a very clear correlation. And then if you even go further, in more recent studies that we will discuss today in more detail, we have found out that you can put a finger on the entities who are responsible for a lion's share of climate change. Imagine just 100 companies, a lot less than the people in this webinar. Just 100 companies are responsible for more than two-thirds of climate change. And now knowing that, we need to work together to hold them accountable, because as Utah Phillips, the celebrated folk singer, labor unionist and activist, had said, the earth is not dying, it is actually being killed, and those who are killing it have names and addresses. We can find them. This is also in the context of the huge inequality in our world, where the eight richest people, all men, own wealth equivalent to the poorest 3.5 billion people. This is such a sobering reality that we face. My last point is about the complicity of industry, the fossil fuel industry, because they knew about climate change many decades ago. And even if they knew, and one of these companies even produced a film in 1991 called The Climate of Concern. The film warned of the consequences of climate change. It even talked about climate refugees and floods. But this company realized, also in this film, expressed their concern about fossil fuel burning their own business, posing serious climate risk to the entire world, and also illustrating in this film the correlation between their business, gas, oil, and coal, and the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. However, instead of doing something about the problem, they concealed the problem and continued to explore for more fossil fuels and enjoin business lobby groups that cast doubt on the science and the risks, the real risk of climate change. Perhaps Shell should go back and watch their own documentary because they knew about it half a century ago, but they deceived us, misled their shareholders, and robbed all of us a whole generation's worth of time to actually reverse climate change. This is truly something we should keep in mind and hold in our hearts in order for us to find solutions, real solutions, and find that resolve to grow and sprout from the seeds they tried to bury. This is truly a momentous time in history for us. We are at a crossroads, and future generations depend on us to take action today. We need to plant seeds of hope and let a thousand flowers bloom and build that solidarity so that we can truly avert this crisis and achieve justice and build that revolutionary counterculture that fosters equality in society, fosters a better new normal for all of us, and let our youth also take their important place in history by letting them generate and expose those cracks in the system that continues to be unsustainable and destructive and build that political pressure so that all of us can abandon that old normal and move towards that beautiful transition and walk together on a pathway towards a more fair, more green, more egalitarian, and sustainable society. With that, I leave you with this with this exhortation. I hope we all stand together and make another world possible. Thank you very much. Mabuhay po kayong lahat.